Hey folks, how's it going? Thanks for checking the video out. We've been treated this week to the brand new Neutron 5, and I previously did a video where I said Neutron 4 does mix my track for me. Well, I want to use Neutron 5 to mix my track for me, and there's a couple of kind of caveats there. So first of all, I want to address the elephant in the room that on the Neutron 5 release videos, especially like the main one, you'll hear my voice. And on a few subsequent videos, you're going to hear my voice as well. So is this a biased video? Well, I'm going to try and make it as unbiased as possible. I'm connected with iZotope. I love iZotope. I love the guys there. They're great. But I'm a user of iZotope stuff as well, and have been since long before I started being affiliated with them. And I've always liked the mixer system as a way of getting 80% of the way there. And I think this is the really crucial thing. Mixer system isn't meant to be click a button and it's there and just upload it straight away, because otherwise they just have the mix button and it'll be next to the upload to Spotify button. You know, the whole idea is that it gets you 80% of the way there and then you're free to create from there. So what I want to do is straight away play you a track, first of all unmixed completely. Secondly, with Neutron Mix Assistant on all the channels. I'm going to go into that in a minute. Then with Neutron Mix Assistant on all of the channels with me just tweaking a little bit. And then with it on all the channels, but then also with Ozone on the main output. And this is just set to like the assistant as well. So without further ado, let's take a listen. All right, so some nice differences there. What I feel is that it really just makes it feel a bit more like a track. And this is, you know, I haven't mixed this at all. This is really the first time I've opened this track since I recorded it. I wasn't booked to mix it, but why not? A bit of fun. I want to take a look at some of the new modules. I want to take a look at some of the new ways of working as well, and just kind of dig in a little bit and see what's what. So let's go. So I'm actually going to take the instance of Ozone off, so we're just hearing Neutron. So here's what I've actually got here. I've got on every audio channel, I've got no buses or anything going on here. Neutron 5 is just on every single channel, with the exception of the toms, because I forgot, sorry. They don't play that much anyway, whatever. So it's on every single channel, and you'll see that I've got like a side chain coming into them because I've been messing with the phase module as well, and just kind of trying and seeing where it works and where it doesn't maybe work. More of that in a moment. But let's take a listen to the snare drum to start off with. Why not? And let's just see what's going on, because it's working in a nice way. To me, this is a good example of Mix Assistant in general. Whichever version of Neutron you're talking about, this is the kind of thing that it does. When we get onto the vocals, we're going to dig into density a little bit. When we're looking at the bass, we're going to dig into phase. And then, what's the other one? Clipper. On the snare, this is wicked. So look through the chapters if you feel like it. I'll do a chapter for each of the new modules, and let's just dive in. So what I like about this snare, in its first instance, sounds snarey, sounds like a snare. But then when we bring in the Neutron Mix Assistant stuff, it just makes it more like a snare. Just take a listen. Okay, a couple of things to address there. First of all, we're clipping, okay. Second of all, we've got equalizer, sculptor, compressor, density, and exciter on there. Now, this is some EQ that I bought on. I just felt like it needed fattening up a little bit. And sculptor has always been there. It's always great. And it's noticed that it's a snare. That's important. More on that in a moment. The compressor, I never felt like the compressor was really included as much in Mix Assistant previously, but it's in there now and it's nailing it. It sounds great. Let's go through and have a look at density, because on the snare it's working to bring up some of the low stuff, and the exciter is always nice for a little bit of slap. So let's just take all these modules off and then bring them in one by one and see what's going on. Some nice lows. This is what we're talking about, the high end. like what that's doing. Cool, so here we've really got tonal stuff at the beginning, the EQ and the sculptor. Then it goes into compression, clearly, compressor number 1, and then density. So for those of you who haven't heard all the marketing blurb, compressor is a normal downward compressor, so it's chopping off the top stuff basically. Density is the opposite, it's bringing up the low stuff. And this can help with keeping stuff consistent. This can help with bringing up words that are not really heard as much in a vocal, as we're going to see. It's doing a great job on that. And here it's bringing up the tails of stuff, and I think it sounds great. What I do want to address though is this clipping, because we've got the new module, the clipper, in there. And to me, soft clipping sounds a little less splatty than a limiter. So what I could do to deal with this clipping, is just pop a limiter on. It's going to put the ceiling at -1 and it's going to stop it from clipping. But let's take a listen to that. So before the limiter and then with it. I feel like it does what a limiter does. It kind of just squashes that initial hit, and I don't necessarily want that on a snare. I don't want that to be chopping off all that transient goodness. So a clipper is going to do a similar thing. It still clips the signal, but it does it in a slightly more musical way. And actually, no, I'm going to take that back. I hate it when people say this plugin does something in a musical way. I just said that by accident, sorry. It does it in a better way. It does it in a way that isn't quite as splatty. So let's bring this threshold down to -1 as well, why not? And let's turn the limiter off, and then let's hear without the clipper and then with the clipper, and it just doesn't kill the transient quite as much. But it's still stopping it from clipping. Now, I'm going to have to stop using the word clipping there because there's a little bit of a disparity there, isn't there? Clipping as an effect, good. Clipping in plugin world, not quite so good. But to me, having that clipper in there just allows you to take off that transient that is allowing the plugin to distort, should we say? It's not distortion, is it? To peak at the final stage. But it does it in a slightly better way. And you can go into multi-band mode with this as well. You can look at all these bands you can bring in. I haven't done that for the snare because it's a snare, why would you? But to me, that's a really cool feature. So I like what it's doing to this snare. I didn't change it all that much from the actual like Mix Assistant version. I just altered this very slightly. It was kind of not bringing it up quite as much, and it wasn't as broad. So for these guitars, it did something quite interesting, and I actually listened to it, and initially I was kind of thinking, oh, Neutron, what have you done there? That doesn't sound very good. Or it wasn't that it didn't sound very good, it just sounded completely different. And I realised that on Sculptor, instead of distorted electric, it had actually picked up that it was a clean electric. And as soon as I took that off and changed it to distorted, it made everything a little bit better. So let's have a listen to this on clean electric and then take it over to distorted. Yeah, so it was kind of picking up that it was a clean electric, and for that reason, it was making it dull. It wasn't expecting all that harmonic information in the high end, so it was saying, right, I don't need all that high end information, so I'm going to take it down. If you look at what Sculpt was doing, it's chopping it all off, because it had misidentified it. And again, this is one of those things that it's not a magic bullet. It's not the thing that you just click, go, and everything is 100% the way there. It's meant to be manipulated. It's meant to be a little bit, okay, let's tweak that, let's tweak this. And for that reason, I don't begrudge it miscalculating something, because you're going to have to go, or you should be going through stuff anyway and kind of working out what's going on. So for me, just doing that and just noticing that it thinks it's clean, but it's actually distorted is what, 1, 2 clicks, and then it sounds loads better. And you know, from the actual original, it sounded kind of fuzzy, and then when you bring it in, it does sound better. I can make that tone brighter if I want. And that was the case on all of the distorted guitars. So once I did that, it kind of just helped it come to life. And that's why it's so important to go in and actually adapt things and actually change stuff to your liking, to your taste. So one place you're going to get some use out of this phase module is when you've got two mics or two recording sources on one instrument. So maybe you've got a DI and an amp for bass. Maybe you've got like overheads or drums or whatever. But one place that I'm finding it useful is on bass. Now what I'm actually going to do here is I'm just going to copy what's going on and then take off the amp sim. So I've got amp sim on the bass DI, which I like this amp sim. It's cool. The whole sound is, I think it was played with fingers and it's not too attacky. So just listen to it on its own for a minute. This is through the amp sim. Might be a pick, but it's not too attacky anyway, whether that's the bass or whatever it was. What I want to do is feed in the original track. So I'm going to go to phase, bring that in. I'm actually going to bring that to the beginning of the module chain. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it makes sense you'd want to sort the phase out before we go into anything else. In the side chain, bring in that bass. Where is his bass? Not the harmonics overdub. What's it called? Bend bass DI. There we go. And just get it to learn what's going on. So let's click learn and then let it learn. Did you hear that? When it just flicked through, it made things better. We actually got more low end. So let's take phase off and have a listen to it and then bring phase in. So one click on learn and just bring stuff into phase. It's such a powerful tool because if you've got two pickup sources for an instrument, then there's inherently going to be some phase issues there. And with this one, it may be that there's a timing difference because I've taken off the amp sim. Whatever it is, I don't really care what the problem is. I just want something that will solve that problem. And phase is doing that for me fantastically well. It has the added bonus that it's going to apply some phase rotation. So what phase rotation is when you have mismatched waveforms. So you may have more in the positive side of the waveform than the negative. And that is an issue because if you've got compressors taking place or if you've got any kind of stuff that's dealing with the track on a volume-based level, then it doesn't really care whether it's positive or negative. It's going to start compressing at wherever the highest point is. So if your positive is way more higher than the negative, then it's going to compress sooner, and we don't want that. So it's just going to sort that all out and put stuff into phase. We've got loads more bass from that, which to me is a massive plus, especially seeing this is bass. But the density module is actually doing a lot of legwork here as well. It's bringing up the low end. So if I take density off, let's go back to just the right. Bear with me. I'm gonna go back to the original track, the one with the amp sim. Go on to Neutron 5, go on to density. Okay, let's hear it without density and then with. And we'll hear that it's just bringing some stuff up. It just adds a little more kind of homogeny there. And you'll notice that with the threshold, typically you think of a compressor, well, if I want more effect, I'm going to bring the threshold down. No. Not with an upward compressor. As you bring it up, you're going to see this orange trace doing more and bringing stuff up more where it should be. It just adds a bit more to the overall fatness and it just brings up that low end information. And bass is notoriously hard to get right. That bottom end is notoriously kind of tricky. And I think with something like this, you're not treating it on like a nuclear level. You're not going to the master bus and just saying, right, add some more low end. You're going in on the specific instruments and fine tuning that bottom end and just saying, right, I need a little bit more of this. Let's make it happen in the right place. And importantly, you can get that bottom end even by slamming it with a compressor and bringing the makeup gain up, but then you're affecting the transients, and we don't really want that in every single track. So being able to attack it from two different directions, being able to take down the transients a little bit, just the right amount, and then bring up the low stuff underneath it is fantastic. And again, we've got that in split band mode, so we can do that to just the low end if we really want to. We've also got that in mid-side mode, which is going to be really handy for stuff like, think keys. Like if you've got a keyboard part that the low end is kind of lacking in, then you can put it into mid-side mode and just in the mid channel, bring up the lows with upward compression. It's really handy. I'm going to move on to vocals here because Density is really doing a nice job on this. Now this is an aggressive punk rock vocal, should we say. I'm just going to pan that to the center for a moment. And we'll see what Density is doing. Or in fact, let's see what the whole thing is doing. Let's just hear it without anything and then with Mix Assistant on, because it's adding some clarity, it's adding some overall leveling, and it's just sweetening stuff really nicely.
Stumbling back home, please don't help me out. Comfort where I roam, please don't help me out.
Okay, so the important thing there is that it's not being really aggressive. If I want to make it more aggressive, I can then go back, but this is really laying the foundations for me and just improving stuff massively. And you're going to hear this Density really come into play on this little bit here. So let's just bring my cycle range around that bit, because we've got the kind of second part of this vocal, the level comes down. So I'm just going to bring Density out for a minute and just take a listen to the mismatch in level.
Please don't help me out.
Where it says out, please don't help me out. It kind of comes down because it's a lower note, so we can't put quite as much power into it.
Please don't help me out.
It's a little bit unsteady, but then when we bring Density in,
please don't help me out.
Without,
please don't help me out.
With,
please don't help me out.
And that is the power of Density. Density is, out of the three, it's the one that I'm using on the most instruments. Phase kind of fixes a problem, and it fixes a pretty specific problem, but it's an important problem. Clipper is like for adding fatness and adding an amount of kind of choppiness, and just helping to limit things without limiting, just helping rein in that transient, just without completely annihilating it. But Density, for me, is the one that I'm listening to a track and saying, oh, what do I need here? Oh, it's Density. And you can use it on a vocal, you can use it on a bass, you can use it on a snare that needs the tail bringing up, you can use it on so many instruments, and it really is the MVP for me of Neutron 5, because it does such a great thing. It levels stuff out without making stuff too squashed, and that's always been the problem. We want a nice, solid, foundation-based mix, and we want everything to be just there. We don't want it to be up and down. But when we're compressing stuff, we're sacrificing transients. And if we're using upward compression, we can bring all that stuff up that we're trying to do with normal compression, but we're not really able to do. And it's so powerful, such a powerful thing to be able to do. So there you go. I think that Neutron 5, the Mix Assistant, let's do Mix Assistant first. It's always been a case of click this button and get me 80% of the way there, and then you can change things. That's the thing. It's never been a case of click this button and everything's completely mixed and just send it out the door without even listening, because we're not there yet. You know, it's not that kind of thing. It's the kind of plugin that gets you in the mindset to mix. To me, it's something as like a preparation almost. It's something that says, right, let's get you to the point where a snare kind of sounds more like a snare, and then you can go from there. If you've got stuff recorded in a home studio, or if you've got stuff that wasn't recorded in the best way possible, then sometimes you can encounter these issues, and Neutron is a great way of getting to a solid point so that you can then alter that. You can then make your own tweaks and get it to be your mix as opposed to Neutron 5's mix. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you're using Neutron 5. Let me know what your favourite module is. I think it's pretty clear that I'm a big fan of Density, but the other two, Clipper and Phase, are indispensable in their own way. Let me know, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.